Hi, my name is Ruby and today I thought I would share my top 5 books that I read in 2017. These books didn't come out necessarily in 2017, I just read them that year, so it's not the top 5 best books that were published in 2017, it's just the ones that I read. Without further ado, here are my top 5 books. The first book I'm going to show you guys I don't have a physical copy of, so I'm just going to use this one by the same author just as a placeholder. Book number 5 is The Inexplicable Logic of My Life by Benjamin Alire-Sanz. I think that's how you say his name, and I really liked it. I gave this book a 5 out of 5 stars. This book made me cry a lot. Like, I would go from happy tears to sad tears to happy tears to bittersweet tears to sad tears to happy tears all the way throughout it, and I think that that book was able to do that is really impressive and is part of why it got such high rating from me, because it really affected me, and when books really affect me I just really like those. It had really good representation in that it had characters who were part of the LGBT plus community, and it had people of different ethnicities. It was a really good book, and I really liked that the main focus in it was about friendship rather than romantic love, though that did come in a bit. It wasn't very focused on. It was mainly about family and friendships and how friends can become family, and it was all very touching and I highly recommend. And I also recommend Aristotle and Dante Discover the Secrets of the Universe, which is his other book that I have read. The next book I'm going to talk about I also don't have a copy of, but that book is The Hate U Give by Angie Thomas. It's a really good book. This book a 5 out of 5 stars as well. There's going to be a trend of 5 out of 5 generally throughout this video. These are my favorite books. It was a good book. It wasn't one that I would like necessarily reread, but it's one that is very important in the message that it's bringing to a wider audience. The message being that Black Lives Matter movement and about racial injustice that's happening around the world, which is obviously a very important topic that needs to be talked about more. It was also really good with the characters. I really loved the characters in that book and the family relationships and friendships. I'm a big character person, so if a book has good characters and good relationships, I'm basically sold. I don't care as much about the plot, though the plot is still important, but if it's based on characters, I just love seeing how people are and who they are in relation to themselves and to other people. And the writing style was quite easy to read, so I thought it was really good for most people to read, because it's quite, not basic, but it's not complex in that it will leave you grappling for like, what is they saying, you know? It was really good in that sense. That book also made me cry a couple times. I cried because it was so lovely, even though it was a book dealing with death, because the main character's childhood best friend gets shot by the police, which is sort of a catalyst for the events that unfold in the story. Even though it's about death and racial injustice and all these difficult topics to talk about and address, it's also so full of love and hope. I love it when books that have a dark premise or dark themes are able to give you those moments of lightness. I think it's really important to show the balance between light and dark and happy and sad, especially in literature or films, because it just makes it so much more rich and complex in that you can see all the different layers, and I really like that about this book. The next book I'm going to talk about is The Song of Achilles/Achilles, I'm not 100% sure how to say it, by Madeline Miller. I talked about this book in my spring wrap-up video, and I really liked it. This book also made me cry. There is a major trend in these favorite books in that every single one of them made me cry at some point. It was just a really good book, and I really liked the story, the writing, I like the setting, I love the ancient world, so finding a book that was set there was really cool to read about, especially as it retold a story that you've heard about a lot of times. With characters that you know. This book is a retelling of the Iliad, and it follows the Greek hero Achilles/Achilles, depends how you say his name, and his best friend/lover. It's been widely debated whether or not they were romantically involved, but this book definitely takes that stance. I really liked it. It made me cry a lot at the end, so warning for that, you're gonna be sad. If you know the myth, you'll know how it ends, but It was really good. I highly recommend. The next book I'm going to talk about is The Perks of Being a Wallflower by Stephen Chbosky. This book is about a boy called Charlie who's starting high school, and it's all about his woes, but it's not very sorrowful, and it made me cry at the end again. I really loved how they talked about nostalgia and how those feelings of like where you're either so astounded by the fact that everybody in the world is connected, or you're so disheartened by it, and I thought that was really interesting to talk about. I'm very glad I read it, and I highly recommend that if you haven't read it, which a lot of people have read it, but if you haven't, I highly recommend reading it because I just think it's really good. And the final book to talk about is my number one for the year, and it is A Conjuring of Light by V.E. Schwab. This book did not have the same emotional impact that The Song of Achilles and The Perks of Being a Wallflower and those other books I talked about had on me. It's not one that I think will stay with me for the rest of my life, but it's just so phenomenal that it has to be number one. Like, it was just so good, just so pretty. Look at that freaking color. Oh my god, so beautiful. So beautiful. This book is the conclusion to a trilogy fantasy series that it follows this magician, and there are 4 Londons that are like stacked on top of each other, and it's really cool, and it has beautiful covers and really interesting characters, and the writing is really good. I started off this series not really liking it. I read the first book and I gave it a 3 out of 5 stars, and I was just sort of like not that blown away. I was like, I thought it was a really cool universe and idea to have 4 Londons on top of each other. I was like, that's cool, but I wasn't that grabbed by the world. I didn't love the characters. But then book 2 came along, and I gave that 4 out of 5 stars because it was really good. It had Lila, who was a character in the series, in more focus, and it brought in Alucard. I'm pretty sure he was introduced in that book, who I love. It just got a lot more intense and dramatic and awesome, and I loved that. I was really hyped for the 3rd book to come out, but I was also hesitant because I know that often conclusions of a series are not as good as the other books in it, so I was sort of like, But then I read it, and I freaking loved it. My god, this is definitely my favorite book in the whole trilogy. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. It was phenomenal. It's the best ending to a series I have ever read, which is saying a lot because I have read several series. The characters, the plot line, the suspense, the drama, the worlds, it was so good. This book also made me cry. I did not want to finish it. I wanted it to keep going forever because it was so good. So good. Oh. Ah. So yeah, I highly recommend. That's the end of the video. Thank you very much for watching. I have had a great time. I love talking about books that I liked. I should do this more often because I have a lot of feelings about a lot of books that I would love to share. So yeah, those are my top 5 books of the year. I like them all a lot, and I highly recommend you read them, especially the ones that aren't fantasy, because I know that lots of people don't like fantasy, which I personally love fantasy, but I know it's not for everybody. So I think books like The Perks of Being a Wallflower, The Inexplicable Logic of My Life, and The Hate You Give are really good for everybody to read. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you liked this video. If you did, you can tell me. You can also leave me suggestions as to what videos to do next, because I really have no idea what videos to do next. I just have no clue whatsoever. I hope to see you next time, and I also hope that you have had a lovely holiday season, and I hope you have had a good day slash night slash week slash month slash year slash the rest of your life. Have a good one.